Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking a break from your regularly scheduled work from home programming. Bring your kids, bring your spouse, bring your pets, because they won't leave you alone anyway. Uh, let's see. Let's go to this. What do you do? What do you do is probably one of the first questions we get asked when we meet new people. It's what's your name? What do you do? And if you think about it, it's kind of a vague question, but we know in society that it means, what do you get paid for? What is your job? And really, it's just a product of us engaging in mental shortcuts so that we can sort of categorize people, right? There's nothing manipulative necessarily about it, but we're very busy in day-to-day life. We kind of need to know in a couple seconds, how can we define you? And what your job is an easy way to do it. It's obviously not super accurate, but it's something that we do, and it's how we, at first, it's how we evaluate people on how we're going to hire. So part of this talk is going to be how those mental shortcuts can help us, but also they can hinder us. So what do? I kind of skipped ahead. I'm a recruiter. I'm a recruiter. I'm a recruiter. So
are you? There was a comment just made. Are you sharing your screen? Are you planning to share screen?
Oh my, did I not? Let's.
No.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Just thought if you'd want to share off your screen, if you wanted.
Yeah.
Let
me figure that out. How do I do that?
Hopefully, you're able to do that.
Yeah. Let me go into Zoom. And here we go. There we go. Okay, is that better?
Yep, that's better. Although we're seeing the the slides rather than the presentation mode, so probably worth clicking the present mode.
Okay. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, so the joke was I'm a recruiter. I'm a recruiter. I'm a recruiter. So I'm the studio recruiter at Rovio. That's what I do. Before it was 343 Industries, which was making Halo Infinite. Before that, I was an agency recruiter at the companies you see there. Before that, what did I do? I traveled full time, and I was a theme park performer. I was the guy putting on the costumes, going around and entertaining people. I was also the voiceover double for Donkey from Shrek in the Southeast Asia theme park region. So those aren't really directly applicable skills to what I do now, but I was able to figure out some of those mental shortcuts about how people are evaluated, and was able to make a career change for myself, in my late 20s. And I think that anyone can do that. And I think we should embrace those sorts of people that have a variety of backgrounds. History lesson, from World War II to 1970s, companies filled about 90% of their vacancies through internal candidates, people that already worked there. Today, it's about a third. I would say in the games industry, it's even less. Why that's important is you look at the market share that the recruiting industry has compared to the games industry, it's absolutely massive. Last year, we had 152 billion in the games industry, recruiting industry, and I'm not just talking about like your recruiting team in your company. I'm talking about firms that their whole business model is to recruit. $400 billion. So this is absolutely massive, and this is because those mental shortcuts I was talking about earlier. This is because we're seeing the solutions to our problems externally instead of internally. We could get really zen about that, but don't have time for that. Agenda, this is what we're going to get into. Why is it hard to get hired? Why is it hard to hire? And what to do about it. When I was making this talk, I thought, is this going to be tailored to people on their own career paths? Is it tailored towards people who are making those decisions about your career paths? And I figured, we're actually kind of going to be both in our careers. So we're going to go over both. Why it's hard to get hired. I think this image kind of wraps up the main reason why. Companies and teams look at candidates often as a complete package, something that is signed, sealed, delivered, it's finished. We can order them off of a menu. The job description looks very much like a specific order, but no one is a finished product. No one is done learning, and no one is done growing. So we can't expect people to come in and just be the solution to our problems because of what they've already done. We also have to consider what they're going to do. Now, how we really decide on a hire decision. This is not how we necessarily should decide, but these are the things that we decide on. First thing is the pedigree. When I was talking about the mental shortcuts, the heuristics from before, when we're looking at a resume, the human attention span is about 7 seconds nowadays. So we're spending about 7 seconds looking at a resume. So we're not going through each thing, and we're not trying to make a bunch of mental leaps about what this person could do. We're trying to find things that we recognize. And one of the things that we recognize are company names. And what we do, unfortunately, is that we outsource our evaluation onto other companies. So we go, well, I recognize that company, they're really good, so this person must be good. They've evaluated them, so we can assume that they're good. And usually those people who have worked at companies that we recognize, we usually push them through the process. That also plays into they've already done the thing. Oftentimes when we have some tasks that need to be done, we have a vision that needs to be completed. Hence, we're making a role, we're opening a role. We're looking for someone who's already done the thing we want them to do now. And so what then we do is then we outsource experience. We outsource experience to our competitors. We're saying, well, we want our competitors to have trained these people, and we want our competitors to have grown these people into doing these things, and then we're just going to reap the benefits, and we don't expect them to make any leaps of skill set or experience. That plays into then specialization in one field, number of years. If you look at any job description, most of them will say needs 3 years experience, 5 years experience, 7 years experience. But if you look at, if you ask a hiring manager to really look at the qualifications, you go, what makes this need 5 years versus 4 years? They won't be able to tell you. Oftentimes it falls into internal equity. Someone feels like they've been working at it longer, and it's not fair if we hire someone who has less years of experience, but we're not taking into consideration what they can actually do. And the last thing is culture fit. I could do a whole talk on culture fit, but what I will say about it is we often disqualify people for culture fit because we're not vibing with their personality. There's a trope of, would I have a beer with the person? And this is not what we want to be evaluating on. Culture fit should be something, how does their personality and their way of working, how does that push the envelope? Does that adhere to a certain amount of our values, but also challenge on others? And of course, are they not rude? Are they respectful? Why it's hard to hire. A lot of this comes down to we're ignoring active candidates and we're pursuing passive candidates too much. There's a couple stats here from Wharton School and LinkedIn. We're going to get into, in the next slide, we're going to get into motivators that candidates have. But I'll touch on this very, very briefly. When we go after a passive candidate, I define as someone who's already employed, not really looking for a job, not really necessarily interested in what you were doing, but they're being reached out to, and you're trying to, twist their arm, trying to woo them, trying to get them to join. An active candidate is someone that has shown interest in your company. And an active candidate can also be someone who's internal at your company, right? Someone who is interested in getting a promotion or making a lateral move or changing projects or changing crafts within your company. When we pursue passive candidates and we're asking them to do the thing that they've already done, so there's no promotion being given to them. Maybe the quality of life isn't that much different. Maybe there's not much different that we're offering them. So then it has to be more money. And if we look at the industry-wide raise rates, it's about 3%. So about every year, people get, on average in the industry, about 3% raise. But when you leave to a new company, you get about, on average, a 10 to 20% salary raise. So if you do the math there, with the industry attrition average, people stay in their companies about 2 to 3 years. So passive candidates know that to make more money, they just keep jumping. They just keep jumping. And some big companies know this, and they try to keep them with long-term incentives, but that doesn't work. Because then the next company will just pay out those long-term incentives, right? So what happens in these couple candidates, they keep getting recycled. Every time they jump, they get more and more and more and more expensive, and they very well may be very good at what they do, but their price range is this exponentially higher than the active candidates that you could have been pursuing. And why this is relevant is the next stat is it takes, according to the same Wharton School study, it takes outside hires 3 years to perform as well as internal hires in the same job, while internal hires take 7 years to earn as much as them. So you can see where the discrepancy is here. We're paying tons of money for people based on pedigree. They've worked at a bunch of good companies. We assume that they're better than the people who are actively interested, or the people that are already in the company and know how things go. And statistically, they're not going to perform as well as if we just promoted from within. And then I'm ashamed of talent acquisition leaders like myself. Only 20% say that internal candidates are an important source to fill vacancies, which is shameful, shameful. All right, I've done a video on this before. This could be a talk on its own, but when I practiced this yesterday, it ran a little long, so I'm gonna be super brief on this. What motivates candidates really comes down to these 4 things in general. It's career growth, which is, are they getting a promotion in title? Are they getting additional responsibilities? Can you offer them a career roadmap when they join your company or while they're in your company? And if your company has at least 3 out of the 4 of these, you're golden. If you're failing on any of these, that's okay. You overcompensate in the others, all right? Compensation, it's not just salary. Yeah, those passive candidates in general like to hop and get raises every time. You could throw money at people, but it doesn't keep them. But it is a factor. But I say, especially for leaders, work on the LTIs, stock, equity, RSUs, whatever profit share that you can guarantee them. It'll give them sort of a more of an emotional tie to it, because they know they're getting compensated for the good work they do. They know that success means something physical to them. And compensation is not just lifestyle. It's also showing how much you value the candidate, right? It's even if you can't compete with like the big dogs in the industry, when you're offering somebody, you could explain to them why this is really good within the market, why this is really good within your own company, and why you wanted to give them, maybe a higher than average offer for the context. And they're showing them that how much you value them. It's more of an emotional thing. Personal life, work-life balance. Need I say? I don't need to say any more. One of the reasons why I moved from California to Finland is because there is no crunch. We work 37.5 hours a week. We can't be asked to do more. So that's huge. And then passion. A lot of us get into games because of passion. A lot of us stay in games because of passion. And big tech is competing with us for talent. And they're going to be offering sometimes 3-4 times the amount of salary for some people, like engineers and designers and producers and whatnot. But people stay in for passion. So when you're talking to candidates, when you're talking to your people in your company, make sure one of the first things you talk about is the passion piece. And when you are selling a candidate on a position or a company, feed back to them what they said about what they're passionate about, and present what you have to offer as that passion, if you truly can, don't lie. And then when you're closing them, all you do is when you're giving them the offer, you go, hey, remember you said you're passionate about this? You're going to be doing this, blah, 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 blah. And it's an easy sell. It's an easy close. So what should we do about these things? If you're a candidate, I've also done a video on this. If you haven't gotten that big break that I talked about, you haven't worked for that big company yet, so then you kind of pass through that mental shortcut of being recognized. That's okay, but what you need to do is you need to realize that like these hiring managers and recruiters, we're all busy, but they need to know that if they take a chance on you, that you're not going to be a risk, right? They want to know that their life is going to be easier if they give you a shot. So keep it super simple. Reach out to people, stalk them on LinkedIn. You can always stalk me. Find people in your craft, find managers in your discipline, and reach out with two things. Why you're specifically interested in the company or in the project. Say something about that other person that you've noticed about their work. Say something that what draws you to it. And then why you'd specifically be an asset. You know, go out on a limb. You know, maybe assume some things that they're doing. Oh, I noticed based on an article that you were going to be making personalized games by 2022. I'm actually working on a machine learning project myself. You know, I think that might be a valuable asset to that goal. Bam, you've done some research that looks super good. Don't expect all your dreams to come true off of a single cold reach out. So stay in touch, connect with humans, talk with them constantly, talk about the industry. Then if you're not being given a chance by somebody else, give yourself a chance, work on stuff, make mods in your favorite game, volunteer time on indie passion projects. When I was a theme park actor and I came back to California and tried to get in the games industry, I applied and applied and applied, and no one would take me, obviously. Who's gonna take a guy who just put on costumes for a living to work in their game company? No. So what I did is I volunteered my time to work on a video game in some dude's garage for free. It made no money. It was a little space shooter we released on Android. But I did it. I didn't wait for anyone else to give me a chance. I worked on that, and that led to my very first games job, because at least I kind of knew something about development, and that is great success. What to do as a hiring manager? So we should be being proactive. It's crazy to me that, you know, companies will say, you know, what's your most valuable asset? And we'll say, oh, people. But then we don't really invest in talent acquisition. We don't really invest a lot in HR. So this is what we should be doing. We should be hiring people for potential. We should be hiring people before we need the role to be filled. And look for unique stories. You do not know how someone's background is going to pay off in the long run. And this is one of my favorite quotes. Hire employees who introduce healthy conflict and divergent views that can spur real growth. Look for high-risk people. In today's unpredictable business environment, companies need people who can roll with the changes that occur frequently. So these are the types of people you should be hiring. Yes, the person who's done the same thing for 12 years will be reliable, will be dependable. They'll do the thing that they've always done, but you do need the wildcard people. You do need to innovate or die. If you're a hiring manager and you're going to open a role, this is what you should do in order. First, check your internal talent. As I told you, internal talent performs better. It's also a huge morale boost company-wide when people are getting promoted, when they see that there's actual career development within the company. Then, if that fails, then you check active external talent, and that includes referrals. I could do another talk on referrals. Don't rely exclusively on referrals. It can homogenize your culture, but do that. If then the people that are already interested, you cannot find what you need, then you need to rethink your requirements. It's not yet time to engage passive talent. You need to rethink, does this person really exist? Do these qualifications, are these realistic, right? What do we in fact need them to do? And I recommend remove all mention of years of experience on all your job descriptions. I will say that blanket as a rule, unless there's some legal reason that you need them to be there. Then, if for some reason none of that works, then you can start engaging passive talent for that role. You can start reaching out to them directly, having your recruiters reach out to them directly. Hire internal recruiters. Don't rely exclusively on agencies. They're very expensive. They're good at what they do, but you want to have an internal talent acquisition team who can create a database for you and create an employer brand for you. And lastly, everyone, just network. I used to think networking was a dirty word, but it really just means meeting humans and talking to them. Stay talking to them. We're all humans at the end of the day. And we just like to work with people we like. And that's it. I hope I didn't go over time. And thanks for bearing with me with the tech stuff in the beginning. If you want to reach me, LinkedIn I'm most active on. And I threw my Instagram on there just so you could see what Finnish life is like from a foreigner's perspective.
I'm sure there's a hashtag into Finnish life somewhere along the line.
I'm sure there is.
It should be. I feel like I'm a half adopted Finn at times. Anyway, thank you for that, Lex. So we've got a few questions. I'll go straight into them because we've got plenty of them. So Louise Dillon is asking, any advice on breaking into the industry in a marketing/events position? She's got a lot of experience within the tech space, but how does she show hiring managers that she has a passion and transferable skills?
Oh yeah, I mean events are amazingly transferable. I would say that not a lot of companies see the value in them. When I won't mention the company, but I worked at other companies, and we were really meticulous about the ROI of the events we would throw. We'd say, this is how much it costs to throw. This is how many candidates we got. So if you're approaching a big company, I would say, have some metrics. People love numbers. If on any resume, I tell people, don't list your tasks, list your accomplishments. And numbers speak to everyone, not just big companies. So if you through events, you could say, I did it for this reason. These were my measurables. This is what I accomplished. This is how I grew the business or whatever. And those are going to translate. As far as how you could pitch that to a games company, I would say employer branding is huge from my perspective as a TA person. Also, user acquisition is really hot. Like I said before, with the reaching out to people, try to identify like what company you're going after, see what their goal is, and see how you can tailor the work you've done to that. And if you network, like I said, and you get to know people, they'll give you more than that 7 seconds of their time. And yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
That makes sense. How has the visa situation for internationals applying for roles, how's that work? Are companies gravitating towards hiring national people instead, or are they still looking for international people?
Oh man,
I imagine in Helsinki, there's such a demand on the local talent pool. I'm assuming it's still the case that you're desperately kind of trying to get everybody to see the values of living in lovely Helsinki or Espoo or wherever.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, man. I mean, that's why I'm here. I'm not a local Finn. I came very far away, California. My job is to convince foreigners that this is a great place to be. So yes, absolutely. I wouldn't say yes, the whole Corona thing has slowed things down logistically, but at least for my work, no, we're still very much going after international talent. I would say, yeah, it's going to depend on the company. Right now, the bigger companies are winning because they have the bandwidth to stay afloat when things are tanking. So the big companies across many industries are absorbing all the best talent right now. Whereas I feel like in the past couple of years, it's been kind of the opposite. Big companies have been losing talent to the exciting startup. So I think people are kind of craving that stability. I'm not an immigration lawyer, so I can't advise on specific visa situations. But what I will say is we are, as an industry, I think we are evaluating how important it is for people to be in the office. But something that people don't realize is there's a lot of like tax reasons and legal reasons why a company needs you to at least be in the country. So for Rovio, we're basically, if there is a really compelling case to start you remotely, we will, but the expectation is that you then do have to move to Finland or Sweden where we have our offices.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, particularly sitting here in the UK. We have obviously the kind of fallout for Brexit to really hit us. But actually, even then, just sponsoring an international visa is very prohibitive for a small company. It's not, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it is as near to impossible as most small teams could do. So I think that's part of the reason why, from an international point of view, it's largely going to be the bigger companies. But that being said, we work kind of internationally. So we work remotely anyway. So we happen to have people, but you have to hire them as consultants. You can't hire them as staff. And that can have other implications. So It's a tricky beast, but I think it's obviously something that needs to be paid attention to. So next question. Again, I'm gonna try and rattle through these. So Eden Reeve is a freelance concept artist having a tough time entering the industry. They've sent messages to people trying to connect, and quotes has been ghosted. Junior positions go up, and hundreds of people apply.
Yeah.
How do you get into such a competitive role?
Okay. So you have an advantage because you're an artist. You can have a portfolio. This is a huge advantage, especially for junior talent, because you just go, I do this. This is what I've done. The proof is right there. It's a lot harder for other crafts to do that. You have to kind of convince somebody. So make sure that your portfolio is up to date. Make sure it really shows what you're proud of. I think especially when you're junior, it's less important to show your variety, and it's more important to show like what your specialty is. So you do how you want, make your art station, your website, whatever, feature what your specialty is, and then you can have other links to other stuff that you can do. Personally, I've seen, even at Rovio, our art directors are very open to, they don't care about the years of experience necessarily in some of our studios. They're just like, are they amazingly good? Cool. You're also fighting against, everyone's fighting against the whole, my application gets lost in the abyss. It's true. You know, even at Rovio, we're a big company, but like I'm the recruiter, and I can't even tell you how many applications we get every day. So even I have to like take 7 seconds to read them all. I just can't do it. It's just impossible. And I refuse to use things like bots to auto do it. So I think when you apply and forget it, it's a very, very rare chance for anybody to get the job from that. So I say, apply and then reach out to somebody in the company respectfully. Hey, I applied, I'm interested, you know, could you give me any advice? Or I noticed this, use the script that I told you about. I don't mind pings at all. And in fact, I think that shows proactivity. So just, you know, be the squeaky wheel that gets the grease, have a good portfolio, and follow up respectfully and stay in contact. And then when an opportunity pops up, you'll be first in mind.
So with that, I'm going to switch questions. I think this is kind of connected. There's somebody here saying, would you advise to somebody who wants to get into the games business but has no direct experience? And in this case, I say he's anonymous, so it could be either gender or any gender. You know, not talk about young people, but more experienced folks. How do you get someone who's got background that's not games being able to bring that into the games industry, particularly if they don't have the artist portfolio?
Yeah, so that's what I did. I was unemployed when I left the theme park world. Living in Asia, I left the theme park world. I traveled full time for a year, and then I went back home to California, and I was unemployed for 7 months. So I was unemployed for a year and 7 months, and I worked at theme parks. I had no directly transferable skills whatsoever. But when push comes to shove, you figure it out. So like I said, you get experience doing something. The reason why I'm in recruiting is I figured out that somehow actually my skills and experience being a performer and understanding human psychology, and to get into a role to act, you have to understand human psychology. So I realized, oh, that's transferable. That's something that I can do. And I had to believe that myself. So when I'm working on that game I told you about that I volunteered in a garage, that gave me the games cred. That showed that I was proactive and I was going out and getting whatever experience I could. So then when I finally started reaching out to people at this little agency, recruitment agency that worked with games companies, they saw that I had worked on a game, and I was able to come up with a compelling elevator pitch about why my theme park experience would translate into recruiting experience. It's ridiculous. But if you can make that, if you can believe that yourself, people will believe it. So I don't know what it is you do, Anonymous, but there is something that you do. Everyone has value because everyone has potential. And if I looked at my past and made that an indicator of what my future would be, then I would not be where I am, and you don't have to either.
Yeah, and I think I'd back that up. So I kind of, when I joined the industry 22 years ago, the way I did it is by making a game, but it was a tabletop role-playing game I made, not a computer game, but I used my marketing expertise, because I was a trained marketing guy, to come in. And then I've ended up being a game designer, a consultant, kind of running big platforms. It's about your drive, I think, to a certain extent. So I'm going to kind of try and, we've got only time for one question. We've got about 7 in this list. There's so many I'd love to sort of answer. You know, someone's asking about game engines. How, you know, is it worth, just make games. If you learn a game engine, great. It doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. It's about understanding how you're going to apply it. You know, is that, you'd agree with that? I'm sure.
Yeah, Unity, Unreal, do those. Yeah.
There's one, yeah, exactly. Unity, Unreal are the two, but I've seen people with Game Maker showing the capacity to learn as well. I'm going to get you to answer this question. Apologies to all the others. This is from Mr. X Nelson. So any tips for finding and hiring people at a senior team level? So you're trying to found a new company, but you need an MD or a CTO to kind of join you. Any thoughts on that side?
Oh, for a CTO level.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so you have to play on the jackpot mentality, right? These people are already they have great, stable, secure jobs. They have a great salary. They probably have great stock options. You need to play on that sort of like Silicon Valley, Hollywood thing. It's the difference between a BMW and a Ferrari, right? That's one way to be like, look, you're going to get in on the ground level. You're going to have massive equity on this thing. You got to pitch them like you would pitch an angel investor, right? You have to make them see the huge value of this thing. You can also play on the passion of it, right? Figure out what their passion is. Why did they get into what they do? You know, no need to be manipulative, but you can kind of, you know, figure out, like, is the corporate life draining them in any way? One little stat I will drop is, I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago, out of the 30,000 GDC participants, less than 17% of the attendants had been in the industry for 7 years or longer. So what that tells me is that a lot of these people are burning out, and they're going to, they're leaving the games industry, right, for these big tech companies. But there may be something that goes, man, you know, I miss those good old days, right? Play on the passion and play on that jackpot mentality.
And on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much. There are so many open questions. I will try to answer some.
You can send them to me on LinkedIn. I always respond on LinkedIn.
That sounds good. So thank you very much, Lex.
Thanks, everyone.
Much appreciated. So that was how to get into the games industry from a variety of perspectives.